with his disc, all their sinful reactions have been destroyed, and now they are free from the curse. Srila Prabhupada ki. In their last birth, Jai and Vijay did not become demons or Rakshasas. Instead, they took birth in a very exalted Kshatriya family, related to Krishna's family. They became first cousins of Lord Krishna and were practically on an equal footing with him. By personally killing them with his own disc, Lord Krishna destroyed whatever sinful reactions were left in them because of the curse of the Brahmins. Narada Muni explained to Maharaj Yudhisthira that by entering Krishna's body, Shishupal re-entered Vaikuntha Loka as the Lord's associate. Everyone had seen this incident. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikalpatrubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Paditanam Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So, the curse that's being referred to here is the curse of the Kumaras. And Jai and Vijay chose to take birth 3 times as demons, and then in their last birth, they were killed directly by Krishna, which was auspicious. So what's interesting in this chapter is the theme is how Krishna is equal to everyone. So if you're getting your head taken off by the Sudarshan chakra, it may not appear like he is being equal to everyone, although immediately after your head has been taken off by the Sudarshan chakra, then you would appreciate that Krishna's been very kind to you. However, to avoid confusion, it's a lot better to be Krishna's devotee, because then Krishna will protect you and you'll be fully aware that he's equal to everyone and that he doesn't bear you any enmity. So that's the challenge when we take up Krishna consciousness. We initiate this dialogue with the Lord, and we're trying to remain in loving connection with him, and sometimes things may go wrong, and then it will be challenged. Our faith in Krishna will be challenged. Is Krishna really my well-wisher? Sometimes people, if things go really bad in their life, they use that as a reason to justify not believing in God. You know, if things go well, I'll believe in God. If things go bad, then there can't be a God, which is a very bad criterion for establishing whether God exists or not. And if a person is very selfish and very self-indulgent and things don't go his way, then you end up with a lot of people in society who are atheists only because they've not been able to gratify their senses. So I'll believe in God if I can gratify my senses. It's not a good premise to establish whether God's there or not. So the ideal approach is, I have some faith that God is there, and I'm going to try with great determination to perceive his loving hand in amongst situations that aren't going according to how I plan them to go. So I have my plan, and things may not work out according to my plan. But my ultimate plan, my supreme plan, is that I'm going to see one way or another Krishna's loving hand in everything that's going on in my life. That's the challenge. Can you do it? Today, can you do it? What's going to happen today? Today, well, in Scotland, it could be hailstone in an hour. Then we could have a tsunami the next hour. And then you could find a hole in your shoe in the next hour. And then you could get COVID in the next hour. It could be a lot of things that go wrong today. Will you be able to maintain your faith that this is Krishna's loving hand? He's making arrangements for me. He's using my karma as a vehicle to give me the lessons I need so that I can become reformed. So material world means reform school. We're here to be reformed. And we're here also to become aware of our swarup. Self-realization means becoming aware of who you really are and not who you think you're supposed to be according to the people around you. That's why if you're in the association of devotees, it's much easier to establish your real ego. And if you're in the association jana sanghas, the jana, the general population, then it's much harder to, and that's why it's difficult. If you're practicing Krishna consciousness outside and you're all the time in the association of people that are non-devotees, then the challenge is, can you insulate yourself enough? Is your morning program strong enough that your sadhana can provide you with psychic barriers to deflect the negative energy of the media, of the people, of the general current of society, which is moving along under the misconception that you are this body, this is the only life, there's no reaction for anything that you do, and everyone just has to grab as much as they can. Achihara priyasascha prajalpa niyamagraha. Prajalpa, there's a lot of prajalpa going on as well. If you look at it, it's mainly all prajalpa, isn't it? They're all talking about everything else other than, and which is no different really than the birds. The birds are all chirping away, and they're all saying, have you got a worm? And another one's saying, I've just eaten a really big fat worm. And I think there's some worms over there. That's all they're chattering about. And then when they become humans, they're saying, I was in Tesco's today and I got 3 for 2. You got 3 for 2? Really? I got this half price. I got this in TK Maxx. Just like the birds, but instead of worms, they're talking about trousers or films, some form of prajalpa. Prajalpa. Niyamagrahas. Niyamagrahas is people reject the rules and regulations, or they accept the rules and regulations very whimsically. Niyamagraha. Janasangas Tulolam Cha. Lolam, they're greedy for mundane achievements, and Janasangas, they're associating with the newspapers and Facebook and what the radio is telling them, and they're accepting that as the real world, the real conception of reality. If it's not on the telly, I don't believe it. It has to be on the TV. If it's on the TV, then I can accept it's real. It's not. If it's not been on the TV, if somebody says, "Oh, a UFO just landed yesterday in Les Mahego and transported everybody in Kurunavavan up to the planet Maldek," and then you say, "Well, I didn't see it on the TV, so sorry, can't believe it." It didn't happen. Similarly, we also, if it's not in the Shastra, then we don't believe it. Shastra says there's one sun, and that the moon is further away than the sun. So we accept that. And then whatever they're telling us, okay, well, we tentatively remain aloof from the association, which means we don't ignore people, but we don't take their opinions. You have people all arguing, see them sometimes in the pub, although I haven't been in for a while myself, but they're all sitting around the table and they're all saying, no, it was like this. Another one saying, no, it was like that. None of them know, because none of them have been outside their town, but they're all very authoritative because they read it. Well, I read this in this newspaper. Well, I read this. So then they become the authority, you see. Shri Sun Uvacha, Shri Daily Mirror Uvacha. I read in the Daily Mirror today. Whatever it is. And we're saying, no, Shastra, study Shastra. That's the real world. That's reality. And this is fools and rascals with their misconceptions. So, it's better that we become devotees, and then we can appreciate the loving hand of Krishna, how he's there in our lives. If we see that, then our Krishna consciousness is complete. If we don't see it, then there's still a challenge there. How to push through the veil of illusion and ignorance, and to be able to see that Krishna is directly reciprocating with me. And the more we do things with love and devotion, and the more we have an eagerness to connect, then the more Krishna will reciprocate. Krishna has put us here in the material world, and because of our desire to enjoy separately from him, he's removed himself. Because to have Krishna around all the time, or to be aware that Krishna is in your heart, is a big inconvenience. It's like saying to a criminal, okay, we're going to let you go free, but we're just going to have this CCTV camera on top of your head. So whatever you're doing, we'll be able to see it. So it's going to be really awkward, isn't it? Especially if he's thinking of breaking the law again, because when he was in, he found out the proper way to rob a bank from somebody else. He was in crime college for 3 years. So he knows exactly what he's going to do this time when he comes out. so he doesn't get caught. But unfortunately, they've put this CCTV on him. So every time he tries to do something, you notice it's coming up on a big screen somewhere. In the same way, we've come here to the material world, and the CCTV is the Paramatma, and he's watching everything. He's not only watching what you're doing, he's also watching what you're thinking. Everything, every desire. He's even reminding you of desires that you'd forgotten from your previous life. He's so much wanting to look after you. He says, well, do you remember last lifetime you were saying you wanted to be a prime minister? Did I? Yeah. Okay. So I'll have to get into politics then. And all the time he's watching. But at the same time, because he knows that this will be an inconvenience for you, he arranges it in such a way that you're not directly aware that he's observing and controlling and arranging everything. Ultimately, of the 5 factors of action, it's the super soul, the permitter, that orchestrates and facilitates everything to take place. But unfortunately, we're not alone here in the material world. Everything, even the microbes floating around in the air, they're all trying to be God as well. And the worms, and the birds, and the trees, and the people, everyone is trying to be God. So that makes it awkward. And if you have more pious activity, then you give him more facility to be God. And if you have less pious activity, then you can try and be God, but the situation and your ability to load it over is more restricted. And then just like a criminal in prison, if the criminal is very bad, what do they do to the prisoner? They put him in a straitjacket, which could be like the body of an insect. So there's little more you can do really other than try and grab a grain of sugar and eat somebody else. It's very restricted. You never see cockroaches on Facebook, as far as I know. Although you may have people in human bodies getting ready to become cockroaches on Facebook. Any questions or comments? Yes, first Pip and then Nivedita. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Well, that's like part of the Leela. It's like when they come down, they don't just come down as blobs floating around saying, we're just doing the Leela. Then they come down in bodies and they have mustaches and situations. Everything is there. So then that's also that they have sinful reaction. I mean, they weren't exactly good boys when they were here. They were doing all kinds of things, breaking the principles, being rude to people, pushing old ladies out the way when they're trying to get across the road. They were up to all that kind of stuff, They weren't just like being really nice. I'm actually a demon, I know you wouldn't believe it, would you? Probably think I'm an eternal associate. No, they really were playing the parts of demons, They really were scaring everybody, intimidating people, being very impious. So they accrued their sinful reactions, and then they got purified. We have like a kind of utopian idea that if I'm in the Leela, I mean, look at Krishna. He comes into the material world, and most of the time he's killing people. And you want to come to the material world with Krishna? We'll have a picnic. Next minute, Krishna's kicking some demon, swinging him around, taking someone's head off. That's offering him clothes, punching the king to death. It's like quite gory, I thought this was supposed to be Leela. But it's just when thinking Leela means we're all running around with a flower and saying, should we have a picnic? I mean, it is Leela after all. But there's all kinds of things that happen in Leela. Heavy things. So just because it's Leela, you go to the same planet where Krishna's performing his pastimes, you get up one morning, there's a tsunami. The rain's coming down thick as pillars. You're not sure you're going to survive. You think you're maybe going to drown. And someone says, Krishna's lifting up Govardhan Hill. We need to go underneath Govardhan Hill. And you're thinking, lift to Govardhan Hill. And then you think, well, even if I go into Govardhan Hill, how's that going to help? The water's that high, it'll just all rush underneath, So it's scary. Mother Yashoda fainted. She was scared when Krishna was underwater for 3 hours. enwrapped in the coils of Kaliya. It's intense. It's quite intense, the pastimes. Just because it's a pastime doesn't mean it's all hunky-dory. Everyone's just kind of floating around. Oh, we're in a pastime now. Can you give us a sweet ball? Harry ball. You had a question? Shishupal and Dantavakra. Dantavakra. And what was Dantavakra famous for? And then he got bumped off as well. No. So even though he was a demon in Krishna's pastimes, it wasn't that significant, whatever he was just doing the general demoniac program. Yeah, every day run-of-the-mill demon. Nothing special, really. Shishupal was a bit more fiery and ostentatious, so he's mentioned. Just because it gives the pastime a bit of color, a bit of spice, and then it's attractive. Krishna makes the pastime so that they're attractive. When you're hearing Mahabharata, you're on the edge of your seat. This happens, and it's this is so unfair. Ramayana as well. It's very unfair. You become very infuriated. So the more you get into the Leela, the more the emotions are invoked, and that's what Krishna wants. He wants to embroil you in his pastimes, bring your consciousness and pull you into his pastimes, and then take you back. That's why his pastimes are so exciting, and hopefully we'll see more of them made into dramas, and they can do so much now with digital. Can you imagine what they could do if they did the Mahabharata with all the fancy special effects they've got now? It could be amazing, I'm sure it'll happen one day. Any other questions or comments? I mean, it's an interesting subject. The Supreme Lord is equal to everyone. So I guess the main question that stimulates is how do I enhance my ability to appreciate the Lord is making a very fair and perfect arrangement for me, although it doesn't seem like that. That would be the main question, isn't it? That we'd have to ask ourselves. Why? How do I increase my faith that the Lord is equal to everyone? Well, there's a question for you. How do we increase our faith that the Lord is equal to everyone? How do we increase our faith that the Lord is equal to everyone? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there was one devotee doing Sankirtan, and he found this really good method. Wherever anybody said, he just said, "Fantastic." So he'd say, "Where are you from?" And they'd say, "I'm from the hellish planets." And he'd say, "Fantastic." So he said to this woman who looked really upset, he said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "My husband's just died." And he said, "Fantastic." And she went, "What?" He went, "Because we're giving out books today on reincarnation." He said, "Oh, I'll take one of those." So, and what, in the Modi goodness, what is it we're supposed to be seeing? Ampanam, adapanam, idam, punat punam, udachite. We're supposed to see everything is perfect and everything is complete. But the problem with the Modi goodness is if you don't So if a person's in the mode of goodness and he's seeing everything as, the perfect and complete arrangement, then he may become satisfied with that and feel happy. And then someone will say, are you going to try and get out of the material world and come back to Godhead with us? Come on Hari Nam today? I said, I'm okay for Hari Nam. I mean, I'm a nice person, and if I don't go to the spiritual world, I'll go to a heavenly planet. So what's the big deal? I can have a bit more fun. So we have to go from the mode of goodness, where suddenly we see everything is fine. Even we see bad things happen, and we see, well, that was just what they deserved, and we're okay with everything. We have to go from that to developing this eagerness, this greed, loilam, for wanting to go back and connect with the Lord and be in direct association with Him. Even the liberation, there's different types of liberation, but they don't offer. They don't offer what the pure devotee is looking for. The pure devotee wants an intimate relationship with Krishna. He doesn't want to be on a planet with the same body as Narayan, or the same opulences, or the other forms of liberation. He only wants to be in an intimate relationship with Krishna. That's all he wants. And then he goes right through all the different stages and goes to the highest. And along the way, as you're becoming more advanced in spiritual life, then you start developing some mystical abilities, some abilities to always remain happy whatever the situation. You become expert at navigating your way through situations in the material world. Then you start thinking, well, actually everything's okay here, I think I'll just hang around here, get a really good body next lifetime, live for thousands of years, I can have a great time. So you have to go beyond that. Question? How do we increase our faith? Yeah, well, faith is an interesting commodity, actually, because you can't increase your faith until you have faith. You have to start with some faith. Even if it's a tiny speck of faith, you have to. It's like if you're growing something, you can't grow something without a seed. You can cultivate it. Once you've got a seed, you can cultivate it. You can pull out weeds, which will threaten the seed's growth. You can give it nice fertilizer so that it gets strong. You can protect it from direct sunlight or heavy rainfall. You can establish all these different strategies so that you get the most out of the seed, the most potential out of the seed. And sometimes you have to be patient. There's a story about a Chinese emperor, and he wanted someone to take over the kingdom. So what he decided to do was give all the boys a seed. And he said, I want you to come back in a year, and whoever has cultivated the seed the best, he will be the next emperor. So all the boys came forward and took a seed, and they all went back, and amazing things were growing from these seeds. Some boys were growing these amazing flowers, some were growing fruit trees, all different things. And there was one boy called Ling, and he took the seed back, and he watered it every day, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. And he was getting very depressed. And when it came to the day when all the boys had to come back to see the emperor and show them what they'd grown, Ling said to his mother, I'm not going to go because this is going to be so embarrassing, The emperor may get really angry and chop my head off, I think I'll just stay back at home. And his mum said, no, you should just go. Okay, well, it wasn't very good, but at least you show the king that you're trying to follow what he wants. So all the boys came back, and the emperor was looking. And then at the back, he saw this boy that was trying to hide. And he goes, what's in your pot? And Ling was thinking, oh, no. So he was kind of like that, And then the king pushed everyone away, and he goes, come here. And he looked at the pot, and he said, nothing has grown. And Ling said, I'm sorry. And the emperor said, this boy will be the next emperor. So Ling was really confused, And then the king revealed that he'd given everybody seeds, but the seeds had all been boiled, and nothing was going to grow from them. And Ling was the only one that was honest enough to admit that. So sometimes when you're practicing devotional service, you may not see the qualities that you want. You may not have faith. You may not be very enthusiastic. And so then you may pretend that you are really fired up and you really are into things, but you're only pretending so that everybody else will be satisfied with you. But really, there's nothing there. But if there's nothing there, then that cultivates humility and honesty. And if you have honesty and humility, then you can become eligible for devotional service. You have to be patient as well. You may be being impatient and you think, okay, maybe I need to take some type of intoxication and that will enhance my experience of Krishna consciousness. One of our big devotees tried that. He felt he wasn't making enough advancement. So there's a tendency there to want to cheat. So when we're cultivating faith, it may not be manifesting as we expect it to be. So then we have to learn to be humble and patient. And then the deep faith and the deep taste will come, and not use that as an excuse to say, oh, obviously this process doesn't really work, I'm going to go and do something else. No. Krishna's just checking out. Are you genuine? Are you sincere? Are you prepared to be patient and humble? And then if you are, then I'll make you emperor. I'll make you an emperor devotee, an emperor of devotees. Any other questions or comments? It's a nice subject, isn't it? Any questions in general? How do we see that the Lord is equal to everyone? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, karma is like a wheel. So the wheel's been spinning for a long time, and then you put your foot on the brake, and you're wondering why the wheel hasn't stopped. But if you're going down the side of a mountain on a go-kart, and the mountain's a few miles high, and you've been going down for 2 miles in the go-kart, and you put your foot on the brake, it's not going to have much effect at first because of the momentum of the karma that you've built up. So then you have to decide, okay, am I going to take my foot off the brake and think it probably doesn't work and just enjoy the ride? Or am I going to push really, really hard on the brake so that the harder I push, the more it will slow down? And then as soon as you start to see that it is slowing down, obviously that will enthuse you to want to increase your endeavors and try harder. So it's important that when you're practicing Krishna consciousness, that you're practicing it in a very focused way. Because if you're doing it in a sloppy way and you've just kind of got your foot resting on the brake, but you're not really pushing, then not a lot's going to happen. We have to be enthusiastic and confident, but even if you're enthusiastic and confident, then you still got to wait. You still got to be patient. So you may decide, oh, well, it's not working, so I may as well just do it less enthusiastic and less confidently, and I'll still get the result. But then you'll really have to be patient, because it's going to take a long time. It's going to take at least a lifetime anyway. But if you decide to not really apply yourself, it's going to take longer. Generally, it'll take a lifetime. That's what we get. We get a lifetime. Everybody gets a lifetime. The ant gets a lifetime of 100 years. Brahma gets a lifetime of 100 years. Everyone gets a lifetime of 100 years. And it takes a major part of those 100 years to achieve success. So if you start late, if you start Krishna consciousness late, then you should put both feet on the brake and push like anything. And some devotees do that. They join late, but they've learnt whatever lessons they needed to learn, and then there's not much chance of them going away now and doing anything else. So that can also be good. Whereas you may join really early, prematurely, and try and do too much too quickly, and then give up, rather than just steadily, in the mode of goodness, with patience and knowledge, gradually build up and increase, It's a gradual process if you try really hard. If you don't try really hard, then it's an excruciatingly long process. So what would you prefer? Gradual process or excruciatingly long? if I could do the excruciatingly long, can I put my feet up and take it easy? Yep. Oh, I'll go for excruciatingly long. Well, you just chose the wrong option, folks, because you're just going to prolong the agony. I remember when I was a kid, I had this plaster on my knee, and it was a bad cut, and the plaster had kind of merged with my knee, you know. And I was thinking, I was waiting for the doctor to come out and check it. It must have only been about 5, and I was thinking, this is going to be really sore when the doctor starts trying to take the plaster off, you know. So I said, no. The next minute, this flash of white went past me, which was the doctor, and he'd ripped the plaster off on the way past. It was that fast. It's like that, yeah. That's the noise I made. And the plaster had gone, and it was bleeding a little bit, but there was practically no pain. So if you want to go back to Godhead, you can go the quick way, which is less painful, or you can go the excruciatingly slow way, where it's and you could be there for hours, rather than just and that's it, done and dusted. And sometimes it will take a good memory to remember that you wanna make it a quick job. It'll take good determination as well. It's not enough to have good intelligence. You know, like people like to read, and they could be reading and reading and reading. That's nice, but unless you develop the discipline to be determined, then you won't implement what you've heard. You'll just read it and think, "Oh, that sounds nice," and then forget about it. To remember and be absorbed in what you're reading, then you need to be determined also. You need to be able to push yourself. And determination, if you have good determination, then your intelligence will be really keen, really sharp, you know. But if your determination is weak, then it's like having a sword which is blunt. So when you chop things, it takes a long time to hack through it, you know. The sword is very keen, and that's the holy name is referred to as being able to cut through the labyrinth. A labyrinth is like a network of paths, and the holy name is like a knife, like a very keen razor that can cut through the labyrinth of repeated birth and death. Every time you're saying Krishna, 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 chopping your way through the labyrinth. Any other questions or comments? So much prajalpa. Well, then you can see that as the back of Krishna's hand. The back of Krishna's hand slapping the living entity because he's engaged in prajalpa, which is Maya actually. I mean, Maya is Krishna. It's just the back of his hand. So you can approach Krishna, or you can approach Krishna's shadow. You can have Krishna's loving palm, or you can have the back of his hand. Whack. And he's doing that to kind of wake the living entity up. Come on. And then when the living entity starts to approach him, then he has his loving palm on their hand, and he's letting them know that he's there. And as soon as they start doing nonsense, so then it can seem like, oh, Krishna's really heavy, you know. And Maya says, well, Krishna's this heavy one, and he's always slapping you. I won't slap you. Come on. You know that I'll look after you. I'm your friend. I'll take care. You want a bit of sense gratification? That's not a problem. We'll make sure you get your sense gratification. So that's Maya. Look, Krishna, I mean, he's God, okay, that's fine. But he's a bit heavy, you know. I mean, I'm Maya, I'm your friend, you know. I'm nice. I'll look after you. It's my world. I'm the head of the material world here, you know. You worship me and look after me. I'll take care of you. So that's what Maya's saying. And then the living entity is like, Maya, Krishna. But it's mainly just Maya, actually. One time a devotee said to Prabhupada, I just fell into Maya. And Prabhupada said, no, you're always in Maya. Sometimes you fall into Krishna. Sometimes we get a little epiphany, a little breakthrough. And we're trying to increase so that there's less gap less disconnected, more connected. When we're Nishna, when we're fixed, then we're connected, and then we go. And because when you're connected, your devotional services are of a much higher caliber, then you make rapid advancement, and then the taste starts to come. When the plane uses up so much fuel trying to get off the runway, but once it's off the runway, then the plane uses not so much fuel, and then when it gets up, and it's just kind of cruising along, it's hardly using anything, it's just kind of floating along, you know. So we're putting all our energy in now to lift off and get free from the G-force of the material energy, the attraction from the material energy. And then once we lift and we're no longer attracted, then it becomes a lot more interesting. And we want to get to that point as quickly as possible. You know, the longer we take, the more difficult we make it for ourselves. Just like the tortoises that hatch, there's a type of, I think it's a tortoise or a terrapin, whatever they're called, but they have like a shell on their back. And when they hatch, the birds all know when they're going to hatch. And the mother has to lay the eggs quite high up on the beach, otherwise the tide will wash them out. But as soon as that little terrapin or whatever it is hatches, it's going to get to the sea as quickly as it can because there's birds flying around. And what the bird does is it flips it over onto its back and then eats it alive from underneath. So when we take up Krishna consciousness, the challenge is, can you get to the sea before Maya flips you over and eats you alive? So it's a marathon. When you get to the sea, you can chill out. But until you get to the sea, until you get to Majjhima doesn't fall down, you see. Majjhima is fixed. So we need to get fixed as quickly as we can. Once we're in the sea, then ruchi comes, the taste comes, everything flows. We feel weightless. Everything's easy. But only a few make it. Only the strongest and the fastest make it. Everyone else gets... And on that cheery note, any last comments or questions? Okay, I'll finish there before I depress you anymore. ISKCON Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Bol. All of you ki jai.